Hello and welcome to John Can Fix Anything. Today I'm going to show you how to install a 3-inch leveling kit for a 2017 Chevy Silverado 4x4. So if you want to know how to level out your Chevy Silverado, then stay tuned. Okay, before we get started, I want to go over a few things, and the first thing I always try to go over is safety. When you're doing a project like this, it's a very, very good idea for a good pair of safety glasses. It can save your eyesight. Trust me, I've been there and I've had things hit these glasses before. Get you a good pair of safety glasses. Also, if you need gloves, wear the gloves. I wear a pair of gloves when I'm dealing with my tires and rims and doing my jacking, and then I put on a pair of rubber gloves when I actually get into this kind of process, because there's usually a lot of greases around. So make sure you use the proper safety equipment. Floor jack and stand, okay? You've got to put a really good stand underneath these vehicles. That Silverado is a very heavy vehicle. You don't want to put a cheap stand underneath it that could fall and possibly kill you. Okay, so make sure you get a good stand, use a good floor jack, set it up properly, lift it properly, and secure it properly before you get anywhere near underneath it. Okay? Alright, so I'm using the Motofab lift kit. It's a leveling kit, 3.5 inch. Okay, and I'll open it right now so you can see what's in it. It's a very simple kit. It comes with the bolts, okay, the bolts and nuts. It comes with some decent instructions, and then the two levelers themselves, okay. And this is designed so that when we pull out the shock, this goes right on top, and then the bolts secure it to the top, and then you put it right back in and then twist it, okay, and then secure it back. It's a very, very simple system, okay, which is why I'm doing it. It came very well packaged. I'll put a link in the bottom of the description on these. I think I actually got these off of Amazon, but it might have been Rock Auto. But anyway, these are the black atomized, and that's what I wanted because I have a black pickup truck. Some of them are silver, they're different colors, so if you want something different, you need to make sure you're watching what color it is. Okay, now while I'm in there, since my vehicle's got about 26,000 miles on it, I'm going to go ahead and throw a set of brake pads in as well. Okay, and I'm going to do that as a separate video, but I'll do that. And as far as tools go, of course, you need to be able to get the rims off, the tire and rims off, so you need to make sure you have that. You're going to need a breaker bar when you start taking the bolts off of the strut in the front. You're going to need a breaker bar or an impact. Okay, so you're definitely going to need that. You're going to need a good set of sockets, metric, okay, and a set of open-end metric wrenches like this. And then you're probably going to need some pry bars, or maybe a couple of pry tools, a couple of different types of screwdrivers. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the caliper off because I'm going to go ahead and change the pads out as well. And I like to take it off anyway. It's heavy if you leave it all in one piece, and I don't like to do that. So when we pull that caliper off, we're going to suspend that caliper. So you need to either do that with, I always use a piece of wire, heavy gauge wire, or a bungee cord to secure that and keep that pressure off of that brake line. Okay, so that's a pretty good idea what you need. And as we go through the process, I'll make sure and explain what sizes you need, and if I can find the torque specifications, I will. If not, I'll just reference it. Okay, so that's about everything you need for this project. We're going to move outside and we're going to get to it. Here's a quick look at the truck, how it's setting right now before we start. So you can see most all of your Silverado models, they really point forward quite a bit, point down. And this 3-inch kit's really going to bring that up and level it off straight. That's the look I'm trying to get out of this project. So there's what it looks like in the beginning. And then when we're all done, we'll take a look at it again. Alright, as far as lifting points go, I just go right under the control arm right there, and that's where I lift from. And then I'll show you right here. I put my jack stand right underneath the frame, okay, and I gave myself plenty of room to work right here, and then I wanted to keep this control arm free because we got to work with that shock right there, and we got to pull that out. That shock and strut's got to come out of there, so I wanted to make sure I had plenty of room. We're going to probably need to be able to put the jack underneath that shock to move it around a little. Okay, plus it's heavy, so I'm going to have that there so I can use it. Okay, so now it's nice and open, and it was really hard to get off. I've got to make sure I lube everything up here. This is the first time I've actually had these rims and tires off, and I see my calipers a little bit. It needs to be sanded down and painted, so I'll probably do that while I'm at it as well. So, all right, and I'll keep going. Okay, I'm going to update my my tools list, because after I went ahead and did the installation on the driver's side, I realized there was a ton of things that none of those videos that I watched or the beginning of my video showed. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and do an update real quick. First thing that I know you're going to need is you're going to need a good pry bar, and even a bigger one than this if you had it, because you're going to need that for the upper control arm. You're going to need it for doing a lot of prying that I didn't see in any of the other videos. You're going to need a breaker bar for a couple of those. They're just not going to break. And on the upper control arm, my vehicle is a 2017 Silverado. Even though it was only 2 years old, I couldn't just take a hammer and beat on that upper control arm, or even some of the others, and they would come out. They just wouldn't come out. Okay, so you're going to definitely need some type of a wedge or this type of tool to go in there and free those. And you're not going to, I don't think you're going to be able to do it without it, so you probably need to get one of these. Make sure you get a good beater. I got a 2.5 pound hammer, rubber hammer, a good set of sockets, and I mean I needed a 22, I think I might have even needed a 24, maybe 24 or 22 all the way down. So you need a good set of sockets, half inch, you need a 10 millimeter. You're going to need 2 or 3 different types of these are the type of ones that have the mechanism in them. You're going to need that. Different extensions, some close-in wrenches, anti-seize when you put stuff back together. You're going to need a file when you cut off the studs, because when I put this in, the studs, when I put this one in, the studs stuck out, so I had to take, I took this and cut them off with, and then you're going to need a file to file that down. And very importantly, I didn't see in any of the videos where they showed you how to turn that shock. Okay, you got to turn that shock 180 degrees, so you need one of these tools. All right, this is a Cobalt, got it at Lowe's. This is my neighbor's I borrowed. I've got one as well. But you need one of these to strap onto the strut assembly and twist it 180 degrees. If you don't twist it 180 degrees, you're not going to be able to get the shock back in and put it, line up the 2 holes on the bottom where you need to line them up. So you got to have that. Okay. Okay, this is a much better list of what you actually need, out on the floor, at your home, not up on a lift. All right. So take a look at these things and make sure you got them. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and start on the passenger side, and I will go through it again step by step, and it'll be a lot more accurate than the original one I was doing. All right, I'm ready to try this again. I did the driver's side, and I learned just a ton of stuff, so I decided to go ahead and redo the video, because you're going to need so many more tools than what I first thought. And I reviewed 2 or 3 other videos, and they just don't show you everything. They just do everything that's perfect, and it's not perfect when you're out here on the garage, and you gotta, I'm outside today, but I got a single car garage and I don't have a lift and things like that. So I'm going to try to do this a lot more realistic than the others. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to take this upper control arm loose, okay? And you're going to have to take this suspension spacer loose, and the front pinion, you're going to have to take it loose, and then of course you're going to have to take the bolts loose for the strut, and up here the 3. And these 3 up here, I mean on top of the strut, they look easy to do from here, but you know, I don't know. We'll see if we go this way or go from the top. Probably go from this way. But anyway, spray all these down when you know you're going to do it. There's a 10 millimeter here that's the little holder for your brake line. You spray that down, spray those two down, spray everything down first, because even though mine's a 2017, it was really rusted up bad. So I recommend you spray all these things down with penetrating oil before you do it. Okay, so I'm going to take off the caliper because I want to check my brake pads. I want to get the weight off too. Okay, so it's a 19 millimeter. Okay, and I take my stuff off with a rubber mallet. And I've already loosened that one up. I haven't loosened the bottom one up yet, so it'll be more realistic. And these are very, very thin bolts. They don't have a lot of end to them. Okay, so they're very narrow. I'll show you one of them here in just a second. I was really disappointed in how all the nuts and bolts and everything, and the calipers are all rusted. And this is only 2017, and I wasn't happy with that. See how narrow that is? So you got to get a good bite on it. Okay. Then what you want to do on these, they've got little retaining clips inside that keep pressure on the pads. So what you want to do is get you a screwdriver before you try to take them off. Just go down here inside, pry that off a little bit. Get a little spacing between those. And you'll feel it when it breaks loose. Just enough to get in there. Spread that. See, I've spread that away from the this outside one actually was the toughest one. This brake pad. Just take a screwdriver, just drive it in there a little bit, and then just do a little separation on it. And I'm going to put anti-seize back in on mine. Brake quiet. And once you break that loose, you should see, you'll feel it. Now make sure you suspend this. Some guys use bungee cords. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Okay, I used a heavy gauge wire on mine, but you can do it any way you want to. Okay, hang it right there. I'm not hanging it on the plastic, I'm hanging it actually on the metal fitting there. So I got that out of the way. Notice how rusted that is. I'm going to paint all these back up before I put them back in. Now I'm going to go ahead and loosen these, they're brackets for the brake line. It's a number 10, and you might as well do them both. There's one here on top. Okay. And there's one right back here. And then they come out real easy, and then you can just almost take them out with your hand. Don't put them somewhere safe. If you're like me, you'll lose them. Just so that's loose. Because we got to take this loose anyway, and then we got to move that upper control arm, so it's better to go ahead and have these off. Okay. All right, take the pads out real quick. See, these pads, I mean, I've got 26,000 miles on this, but I looked on the other side and the pad was like new, so there just wasn't any use in changing them out. I bought a set, but there's no use. See, those still look pretty darn good. I'm going to reuse them. See, these are those retaining clips I was telling you about. These hold those pads away. So you got to make sure you... Okay, and I'll take a wire brush and brush this up later. But anyway, now that weight's off. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and reposition. Well, I might as well go ahead and get this one off while I'm at it. This one is a, I want to say it's a 15, but let me go ahead and get the sizes. I think they're 15s. I got one on the bottom and one on the top. And this is a really long thread, so you might want to put an impact on it if you got it. I've got a little impact. Once you break this loose, if it's clean, you should be able to run it on up. So let me go ahead and I'll be right back. I'll grab the right sizes for that and we'll go forward. Okay, these are 15 millimeter. So I got a 15 millimeter socket on the bottom and I got my ratcheting one on the top. You may have to move that around a little bit to get it to come off. I have to go forward on mine a lot and then backwards, but it will come loose. There we go. It starts working loose. And them threads, if you get tough, so once you get it loose, if you can get an impact in underneath it, because those threads are really long, it would definitely help time wise. I'll go ahead and get this off and we'll be right back. Okay, if you're expecting a cakewalk on any of these bolts, even though, like I said, mine's a 2017, forget it. They're going to be hard. Okay, well, and then when I got to this, I found out it had a plastic coating around it. Okay, now I don't know if that, I'm not sure if that was, you know, making it more difficult or not, but anyway, it had it on there, so I'll let you know. So I got that out now, and it's ready to come out whenever everything else starts loosening up. It will. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the front and I'm going to get the tie rod and I'll go ahead and reposition so you can see that. And hopefully we'll be able to just bang on that tie rod and get it to pop out. But I couldn't do that on my other side, on the driver's side, and I couldn't get the upper control arm to pound out either with a hammer. But we'll give it a try and see. If not, then we'll have to react accordingly. So we'll be right back. Okay, so the tie rod is 21 millimeter, okay, not 22, so make sure you use 21. And it may take some pounding to get that loose, and I've also got a deep well socket if I need it, but I'm going to try it with this and the rubber hammer, see if I can get it to break loose. And it did, so, which is good for us. Okay, 21 millimeter. I'll go ahead and take this on down, and then I'll leave the end of it on after I get it off, pull it back up, and then we'll try to take this off with a hammer if it'll come off. If not, then I'll show you how to use the tongs. Okay, so I got the nut off, then I'll put the nut back on. Just run it up a few threads, then grab your hammer. I use a little 2.5 pound beater. Should be able to hit right here and knock that out. Okay, see it pop up. So that takes care of that. Thank goodness that did. Up here I haven't had so much luck on the upper control arm, and I doubt if I'll have that luck this time either. So we'll see. So anyway, that's good now. You can go ahead and take that off. All right, put that down the way. It's going to give you some access room you're going to need in here. All right, and then of course you can move this freely once you do that. All right, so now what we're going to do is, let me readjust this a little bit. We're going to go after that upper control arm. Okay, and I believe it's either an 18 or a 19, let me see. It's an 18 millimeter. Okay, so 18 millimeter. And that came loose pretty easy, actually. If you have ratcheting wrenches, boy, they're very, very handy. I recommend them. And we'll see if we can get as lucky as we were on that other one, and see if we can hit this and get this one to come off as well. Now if we do it, get this out, make sure you get your line out of the way. You should be able to hit that right here. Okay, and it should pop it out. But like the other side, mine was not cooperative. I'll go ahead and hit it a little bit on the back side, and if it doesn't come out, then I'll go ahead and I'll bring the video back up and I'll show you how to use the forks. Okay, just like on the other side, I was not able to do that. It never loosened up. So you're going to have a fork or a wedge, and this is rubber in here. That seal is rubber. Now it's not a greased fitting. It's one that's not a Zerk. Okay, but you want to get in underneath that. Okay, pry that up with a screwdriver because you don't want to ruin that. So just take your screwdriver, pry that up, get in underneath that so that you don't tear it. Okay? If you do, it's probably be more likely that you'll have to replace that. Okay? So just take that in there like that. See, I still pulled that loose, which means I'm probably going to have to replace that. No, maybe I didn't. It didn't go all the way. It didn't go through, but you can see how that pulled that out of there. So now I'm going to go ahead and go in on the back side and hit it over here. I want to get this up a little more. Okay, so I had to knock that out with a wedge, and I completely destroyed that seal. So that's going to have to be replaced. You can see how bad it is. Now this is a realistic part of this video that they're not showing you when you look at the manufacturers and all the guys with all their lifts and everything looks so clean. Because of this being sealed in there and not wanting to move, the only way to get it out was with a fork. So I had to beat it off with a fork, which destroyed this one. The other side I didn't have to. I didn't destroy it, but this one is completely destroyed. So I'm going to have to replace it. So I'm going to have to get another one of those on order. We can go ahead and go on with this project, and then I'll have to have that before I move on, which means I'll have to press this one out, and it's going to be a pain in the butt, but it is what it is. So now that I got that out, I got full access to the strut. I'll go ahead and get that taken care of, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I put my jack in there. I'm going to take the weight off of that before I take these loose. These two lower bolts are 15 millimeter. And once you get them loose, if you want to run them on down with a impact or whatever, probably save you some time. Okay, so here are the bolts. Both of them pretty long bolts. Again, I found a lot of rust on a 2017 model I don't like. Almost every bolt I've taken out is really rusty for a 2-year-old truck, so I'm not real happy about that. But anyway, they're out. Now the bottom of the shock is loosened up, and we'll reposition, get everything prepared, and then I'll show you the 3 bolts on top, and we'll be back in just... Alright, so here's a look at the top bolts. You got 3 bolts there here on top, and you can reach them right underneath the fender well pretty easy. It's really not, it really doesn't hinder you a lot. You do have some wiring that sits on top of these bolts. They got little clips on them. You'll see them right away. They're black clips. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get you a flat tip screwdriver, okay, and you're going to have to go in there and pry those off so that you can get to the actual nut head. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that, and I'll be back in just a second. We'll go ahead and pry those off, and then I'll show you how I went ahead and took the nuts off. Alright, just take a regular size flat tip screwdriver. You can see how I'm just going right in above the nut, and you'll see the black clip, and you just work your way around those and just force them up and off. You don't have to worry about breaking them or anything like that. And I'll give you a little tip that when we're done and the new one's on, there won't be any threads for those to go back on with. So I took some zip ties and I tied them down with zip ties because there wasn't enough room on top of the threads to put them back the way they originally were, because the new spacer doesn't allow for that. So you got 3 of them here. I'll go ahead and I'll work all 3 of them off, and then I'll show you how to take those nuts off real quick. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, so I got those pushed up and out of the way. Just take a screwdriver. I just took a screwdriver and pried it. It is 18 millimeter. Okay, and I'm using the ratchet style. So much better. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. And they're not on there too awfully hard. Again, I'm still finding a lot of just rust. I mean, really disappointing in this new vehicle, but it is what it is. And you've just got enough room to do this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get these 3 out, and then we'll be ready to drop that shock down. Okay, got the bolts off. It's pretty much, the weight's pretty much off of it right now. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and drop the jack down, and then most of the videos you watch, you see them, they take it down through the bottom, but because we're not on a lift and in a garage, I'm going to show you how to take it out on the top. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, so I took the weight off. Now when you shake that control arm, you can get the distance you need. Be careful and watch your line for your caliper. Okay, so it's ready to go now, and like I said before, they usually tell you, and you watch the videos and they take it out below, but that's really difficult. If you've already done this work, you can take it out through the top. Okay, so just reach in, grab it, let it, make sure it clears, shift the bottom out, and you can use these coils as leverage to get it out like that, and you can keep the weight off just like that. Now what I recommend you do too is before you take that out, put you a couple of marks on the strut itself, couple 2 or 3 marks, that way see right there, I put a mark on mine. Okay, and I put one on the strut itself. That way you know where the front was, because we're going to have to turn that 180 degrees, and you've seen that, and you'll see that in the video. And you need to know what the 180 degrees are, so that before you start doing that, because you need to be relatively close. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in on the bench and get the spacer put on, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got the strut off, and now I'm going to go over the reason why I even decided to do this video, and that's because of these spacers. I watched 2 or maybe 3 videos, and there were 3 different applications for this spacer. Okay, and they can't all be right, I can tell you, because they were very different. So what I found out from the manufacturer is that they provide 6 of these bolts. I'll show them to you. They provide 6 of these bolts in the kit. They also provide 6 of these nuts. Well, some of the videos showed, you know, this being put on and secured with a nut, right, onto the strut. That's wrong, okay, according to the manufacturer. So these bolts, they've got a 5/16 Allen on the end of them, to use 5/16 Allen. They go through these holes here, the ones that are inset. Okay, the bolts go through these, it doesn't go on here and then you put it on with a nut. That's not the right way. Okay, so these 3 with the Allen, 5/16 Allen, they have to go through here. I recommend you use some blue or red Loctite on these. Run them up through, let it set, because you don't want this to shake loose once it gets in there. Okay, I'll go ahead and put these 3 in here real quick so they can be setting up. You know, just enough Loctite to hold it. Do this 3rd one, and you can do the other one so that it's ready for the other side. Get them out of the way. And I watched the one video and it looked really good, but it was wrong, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of difference in those videos. Okay, so this is the way the collar should look. These are the ones they give you from the factory. Then they give you these other 3 that go through the frame of the truck, and this holds that on. I'm not going to use these because I don't like them as well as the factory ones that came off of the strut. So I'm going to reuse them. But here's the thing. Now this collar only fits one way in here. Okay, so if you go around, you'll see that it only fits one way. Okay, it doesn't fit. If you move it, it won't line up. Okay, so there's only one way to put this on, and that's that way. All right, so when you put this on, if you look, see these studs are sticking out. The factory studs are too long. Okay, so you've got to cut those off. All right, and I saw one or 2 of the videos didn't even show you that, and that's really messed up. So anyway, you can get ready to install it, and then the studs are in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a marker, and I'm going to mark it where I need to cut them, and it's really just right below the first indented threads. You'll kind of see it. Okay, so I marked that. Now I'm going to take this over to the bench and I'll show you how to cut these off real quick. And you want to cut these off way before you put this all on and put it back into the truck. You have a heck of a time. So what I am going to use these for, these nuts, is I'm going to run these nuts down and put them down on here to protect my threads, so that when I pull them back off, my threads will be good. When I get ready to put it back on the original ones, it'll just roll back on and off. So I'm going to take these ones they gave me, even though I didn't like them, I'm going to use them to protect those threads. Okay, so I'm going to run these down, I'm going to put it on the bench, and then I'll come back and show you how to cut those off real quick, and then we'll be ready to move to the next part. Okay, so I got the strut and the vise, and you saw where I marked those. It's about 2 threads down from when it starts getting into the actual thread. Okay, so I grabbed just a Porter cable with a cutting blade on it. I mean, you can use anything you want to. You can use a hacksaw if you wanted to, but I'm just going to use this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these off real quick. Just like that. You can see that has a little bit of residual. I'll touch that up with a file, and then you see I got those nuts on, so I can run those nuts back off and make sure my threads are good. So I'm going to go ahead and do all 3 of these. I'm going to touch up the threads, and then we'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I cut all the studs off. I used a file. I filed everything down nice and smooth, and just verified that you know, these would go off and on, which they do. And I want to make a correction on these bolts that were supplied. We do have to have these bolts because they go in here and hold the collar on. I forgot all about it, so I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, I got these cut and I've got them all filed down. This only goes on one way. Okay, so find the way it goes on, like that. See, now you got your bolts there. Take the nuts with the nylon inserts that they provided you. Go ahead and put those in, torque them down, and then we'll be ready. And then I'll show you on the other end, we have to turn that 180 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put these 3 bolts in. I'm going to snug them in, and then we'll be ready, and I'll flip the camera around and I'll show you how to turn that bottom part 180 degrees, so you don't have to worry about that when you get back underneath the truck. So we'll be right back. Okay, so I got this set up on the bench. I went ahead and put the spacer in. I cut off my bolts and used the 3 supplied nuts that came in the kit, and I just flushed those so that they just clear the spacer. Okay, so I've got that all done. I've got it in the vise. I marked my front of the shock. Now I'm going to show you what I haven't seen on any of the other videos, which I thought was really important, is how to actually turn this. Okay, so get you one of these. Okay, it's a belt tool. I don't know the actual name for it. This is a really good one. It's a Cobalt from Lowe's. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to turn this. So the best place to do it is right on that spacer. Tighten this up on here. Okay, put it in your vise, make sure it's nice and tight, and it is pretty difficult to turn, so don't give up on it. Okay, and grab here, both places, get a good grip, and it will slowly turn. And you'll feel it when you're actually getting it to turn. You'll actually feel it. It'll kind of hesitate, and then you'll feel that rubber give, and you'll know that you're turning it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you that it's turning. See, there was my original mark, and there's my other mark right there. Okay, so that's turning right now, and we've got to go 180 degrees completely around. So that mark's going to be on the bottom, and the new mark that I put on the other side is going to line up with these 2 marks. That's going to let us know that we've got it where we need to have it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that around, and then we'll be ready to put it back in. Okay, So there's my other marks on the other side, okay, that I put on. Now I'm lined up with my new marks, 180 degrees. Okay, that's the one thing I couldn't find in any of the other videos. It's not easy. You got to have a good belt tool. So if you don't have one, go get it. The only other alternative would be to use a pipe wrench right here on the bottom. You can do that, but you're really going to tear it up. Okay, but it's possible to use a pipe wrench there, and then you could probably just paint back over it when you were done. All right, so now we're ready to put it back in, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got it back in position again. Use those springs to support the weight. Okay, and exactly the same thing. We're just going to go right back in again, one spring at a time. Okay, then it needs to slide in and then up. And if you push down on this just a little bit, you can see how I push down on that control arm and I can slide it in. Now I'm going to go ahead and line this other one up. And you'll have to work it a little bit. There we go. All right. Now I got everything basically positioned where I want it. And I can see that my holes look pretty good. And they look like they're pretty much lined up. So I'll go ahead and I just want to test it. And see, it slides right up. No problem. And it actually looks like it's lined up down on the bottom as well. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just use my lift, my floor jack, just to raise that up just a little bit, get me some tension up on this, and raise that up into the holes, and then I'll put my nuts back on, and then we'll go in reverse order. So we'll be right back. Okay, start the two back ones and leave the front one off. Okay, and the reason we're going to do that is because you want to be able to have this play in it, okay, for the bottom bolts. All right, let me show you down here on the bottom. Pull this back a little. Drop it down. Okay, so you see these two bolts right here. Okay, now if you leave that front one in there, see, you can move and swing that around. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lift and I'm just going to lift this up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and get those two bolts started. Okay, once I do that, then we shouldn't have any problem just pulling that on in, and then we can always tighten that upper part. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that and get those two bolts started, and then we'll be back. All right, so the first thing to do, you can just do this by hand, kind of square this thing back up where it belongs. Go ahead, slide this in. It'll help steady it. Okay, put your nut back on. Just gives you a little bit more control. Oh, nut. Here we go. And just, just to keep it on there. You don't got to worry about it. Okay, see, that steadies that, so it gives you a little more. Make sure you take this, your support bracket, and put it on the outside when you're raising this up. Okay, now you're going to have your bar now. Okay, the bar is going to go in here like this. Okay, that's going to push that sway bar down. Okay, I'm going to do it over here so I can have a little, so you can see it a little better. But that's the right angle right there to push that sway bar down. All right, don't forget to put that sensor cable, I think that's a sensor cable, or maybe that's the actual, yeah, that's a sensor cable. Make sure you put that on the outside as you put this back up in there. Because if you put this on the wrong side, you're going to have to take it all back apart again. Okay, so I just get this thing up about where I think I need to. See how that pulls down pretty easy? Okay, line it up. Make sure this is out of the way. And remember, this will move, so you can move that wherever you want it. I need to get this around the other way. Slide this in. Trying to give you the view as best I can, and it makes it harder for me to actually do the job. Okay, I'm going to have to jack that up just a little bit more. I'll be right back. Alright, so I actually ended up getting 2 pry bars, and I held down with this one, and then I held out another one until I got this one in where I wanted it. So now I got it pushed in place, and remember that this ball joint's the one that I destroyed, so I'm just putting this in temporarily till I get the new one. But all of this other stuff will be done, so then all I have to do is just release this upper control arm, swing it up, and then I'll take it off and do it right there. I'll try to do another video for that to show you how to do it. Or you can just take the 2 bolts off the control arm, pull the control arm out, put it on the press, and have them pressed in somewhere if you don't have the tools. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. If you just push down on this, you can see it pushes it on down. There's also an Allen screw in the bottom of that bolt. If it starts twisting on you, just grab that Allen wrench, put it in there, and you'll be able to tighten it up with this and an Allen wrench. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the brackets back on and just check everything over, and then I still got to tighten the 2 bolts down on the bottom. So we'll be back shortly. Okay, so I got the tie rod put back in and got it tightened up. I got the bolts put back in for the upper control arm, and the 2 bolts that hold the bottom of the strut are in. I have not tightened the bolts up on the top of the strut yet, but everything else is in. I got this on the side it should be, so I can go ahead and put it back where it belongs. And I still have that stabilizer to put in right there, so I'm going to have to do that. So let me just go ahead and tighten some of this stuff up, get these upper bolts up here tightened up, and we'll just be about done. Okay, stabilizer's back in. There's a lot of threads on that, so make sure that you get it nice and tight. Also, drop the other side down, and that'll help equalize that pressure on the stabilizer bar. And then when you get done and you got both your rims and tires back on, go back underneath and just snug those up. You may find out that there's a little more play in them. Okay, so I got that done. This is all done. The bolts on top are all tightened up. All I got left now is to put the brake pads back on and the caliper, and we should be able to call this good. So we'll be right back. Okay, everything's back together. I went ahead and painted my caliper because it looked terrible. I got everything weatherproofed, put back together again. I'm ready to go ahead and put the rim on, and then I will show you what the truck looks like and see how level it is compared to when we started. Alright, here's what the truck looks like now, and it's noticeably higher in the front for sure. That lean is gone. It's almost dead even. There's just a little bit of lean to the front, but all in all looks pretty good. So I think that's about it. I'm just going to clean my truck up now and wash it and get it ready for tomorrow. If you like the video, please give us a thumbs up, or better yet, subscribe to the channel. We'd sure like to get to 1,000 subscribers this year. Thanks a lot. Leave any comments down in below, and I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.